Lemkin Solitaire and Equalizer seeders and planters offer disruptive innovation like vertical banding, dry and or liquid onboard fertilizer, and great prices. Go to lemkindemo.com for more information and to request a demo.
You're listening to Ruminating with RealAg, the podcast that chews on the latest in beef production, with your host, Amber Bell.
Amber Bell here with RealAgriculture. I am the host of Ruminating with RealAg. And for today's episode, we are going to be talking about low-stress cattle handling, specifically around calving time. And to discuss this, I have with me Dylan Biggs of TK Ranch. Now, Dylan is very well known for his low-stress animal handling. He does cattle clinics. He is a well-known public speaker. So welcome, Dylan. It's wonderful to have you.
Great to see you, Amber. Thank you for your interest.
So it's been a little while, and you are definitely one of the go-tos when it comes to low-stress animal handling. And we're in the height of calving season for some people and just about to dive into it for others. Are you guys calving yet?
No.
No.
No, I gave up fighting the weather back in the early 90s. So we hold off until May, June typically is when we will calve. We fought the weather there for, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I got tired of it. We weren't really set up for it, to be fair.
No, I think you have to have a pretty nice warm calving barn to be comfortable.
It's a really good idea.
It is. So why don't you tell our listeners, just to get us moving here, a little bit about your ranch, what you do, and how you got into and became passionate about low-stress animal handling?
Oh boy, that's an hour right there. No. You said a little bit, the key word. Okay, well, TK Ranch, we are a Eastern Alberta. We're in the sort of bald prairie. Some people call it very desolate. My grandma always referred to it as God-forsaken. We have a few trees, and most of it's native grasslands. And traditionally, this ranch was started in the 50s, in the mid 50s, and Colleen and myself my family and my daughters have subsequently taken it over and been managing it probably since the early 90s, I guess. And we traditionally were a cow-calf yearling operation. And in the mid 90s, when Colleen and I were starting our family, we started figuring out right away that there wasn't, you hear ranching for profit. Well, the profit's pretty slim. And with the ups and downs of the traditional market, you can get some violent swings. And it became very apparent that if we were going to stick together as a family just ranching, as opposed to me getting an off-farm job or Colleen and I getting an off-farm job, that we would have to add value to our production. And that's when we started direct marketing our beef, and have been doing that since 1995. So now we're a vertically integrated sort of cow-calf to right to the consumer plate operation with our own provincially inspected meat cutting facility, abattoir on the ranch, and a value-added processing facility down by Calgary. And we direct market all of our own production under our own label, mostly direct to consumer through our website. And, in terms of your question relative to my interest and my passion about cattle handling, I am one of a whole plethora of Western Canadian or North American kids that grew up on a cow-calf operation and grew up handling cattle with my mom and dad and in a family setting. And subsequently, after traveling across the country and speaking to producers for the last almost 30 years now, I understand that my experience as a kid handling cattle in the corrals with my mom and dad is no different than the vast majority. And, you're chuckling for a reason, because you can relate, and most people will relate to sort of the fun and games that can ensue when you have mom and dad and the kids in the corral trying to sort cattle or work cattle and actually get a job done. And there's no shortage of, t-shirts and jokes about um, the dynamics, the family dynamics in the process of handling cattle. And, like the one typical example you hear is the best test for the future of a young couple that's about to get married, if they're ranching, is for them to go out and handle cattle together
Work
for an
cattle together.
afternoon. Yeah, and if they're still talking at the end of that whole exercise, then their chances of their marriage being successful is somewhat better, So,
It's true.
and so I grew up, my grandpa was in cattle, and my dad, he was a driven sort of type A personality guy, and so voices got raised and a lot of swearing went on, and my mom went back to the house in tears on more than one occasion. If I was going to spend the rest of my life doing this, I thought there's got to be a better way, right? Because this is crazy, and it seemed that because of that conviction in my mind, just sort of things happened in my life that allowed me to get exposed to people that exposed me to a different way of thinking about handling horses. Initially, that was Ray Hunt. And then I happened to, he was one of the first ones that was sort of on the circuit doing non-restraint horse training back in the 80s. He was really the first guy on doing those clinics, horsemanship clinics. And then I had the good fortune of running into Bud Williams. And for people that do know him, he was sort of the first guy that started traveling around and trying to share his approach handling cattle that he classified as low stress. And I had the good fortune of running into him. And
Right. The Bud box is very well known.
yes, exactly. And so that's sort of what got me started. And those very fortunate circumstances allowed me to open my whole mind about how we do this and how we go about doing it in a way that is better for the cattle and the people and still practical, right? It's still
Right.
practical.
Get the job done.
A lot of people, as soon as you talk about low stress, and that's why typically I refer to it as just stockmanship. As soon as you hear people refer to low stress or people talk about non-restraint horsemanship or different things like that, there's this red flag that comes up for a lot of people that assume that this is not pragmatic, that this is some airy fairy wonderland where, if you whisper nicely enough into the ear of these cattle, they'll do what you want. But nothing could be further from the truth. And it's a very pragmatic approach that actually makes the job a lot more efficient and a lot more enjoyable at the same time. Better for everything and everybody. So.
Right. Well, the yelling makes for some interesting stories. It's not always that enjoyable to go and work some cattle that way.
Oh, there's no shortage of stories.
So we're going to talk about primarily around calving season because I know you and I could probably talk all day long about animal handling in
Absolutely.
general. But
We
so
could
we'll
talk for
stick
a
with
week.
calving.
We could
We
talk for a
could.
week, Amber.
So we'll just stick with calving for this episode. So what are some of the key principles of low stress animal handling that you apply when it comes to calving season? So you already talked about, calving a little bit later in the year, which automatically I think probably reduces some stress. But can you go into that a little bit about other techniques you use?
Absolutely. Just to give people some context, I've been involved in calving cows since probably the early 70s. And I took over calving the herd in the 84, I think it was. And in that process, I've calved out over 10,000 cows. I've tagged that number of calves. And so I've been at it for a while, and I have no shortage of stories. And so there's a couple things that I have changed in that learning process. And so I can definitely share some of that with you today. You know, the first disclaimer is that animals are always unpredictable, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I must admit that I'm very fortunate that I have not been hurt all this time. Lots of producers get hurt when they're tagging calves on cows, because not only are cows unpredictable, but then you add in the maternal hormones
Hmm.
when they're calving, and they become that much more unpredictable. And so one of the things that I think is absolutely imperative is that you always consider that you have uh, an escape.
Hmm.
Like, it may seem like out on a pasture, because we calve on pasture, and a lot of times I'm doing my checks horseback, um, or we're doing them sometimes in a side by side, or we're doing them in a pickup truck. But I always have it in the back of my mind, and maybe it's because of very early memory when I was just like, I think 3 or 4 in our yard. There was a cow and calf at the home place in the yard, and I just remember my brother and I diving for cover under this old pickup truck because this old red brockle-faced cow was coming after us.
Oh
It was
no.
an old 1956 International half ton, and I just remember diving under there to get away from this cow. So what I want people to understand is there's no magic. There's no
Hmm.
magic with any of this. And so you have to keep your wits about you and always have an exit strategy or a way to protect yourself.
Right.
Then, right? Please bear that in mind. The other thing that is central to livestock handling, anybody in my experience who's successful with livestock handling, is they have a very calm, relaxed, confident demeanor. And I can't overstate the importance of that. And that's something that you can't fake.
That makes sense. The only time you're actually going to be late with cattle is when you're in a hurry.
Well, you're in a hurry, you're impatient, you're
Hmm.
frustrated. And not only that, but a lot of people, you see, because this is what I see a lot of, and I understand it because I've been in it all my life, and so I understand it. So I'm not judging or criticizing anybody. But what you see a lot of times is that when people are handling cows and calves, if they're tagging the calves or weighing the calves or giving them calfhood vaccinations at birth, is that they'll have two people. And the one person is the person doing the work on the calf, and the other person is the guard with the stick or the cane or the pitchfork or the shovel or whatever it is that happens to be, right? And the idea being that somehow, if this 1,200-pound cow gets to be really aggressive, that you're
Hmm.
going to fend her off,
Good
and
luck with that one.
right, you're going to fend her off. And I can tell you, if she's really mad, you're not going to fend her off. But more
Hmm.
importantly is the point that um, just that whole attitude right there of fending her off is typically people come with this idea that I'm afraid of this cow to begin with. You're
And I'm on the
nervous.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're on the fight. And I'm just going to tell you a little story that I thought about for years, and I was thinking about when you asked me. So I remember back in the 80s, it was the mid 80s, and my mom was on the place, and her and I were taking a cow up that same alley that I was telling you about. And we got her sorted out and got her into the alley, and my mom was there helping me, and I got the gate shut behind her. And as soon as this cow saw my mom, that cow went after my mom and just hit her up against the windboard fence. Just hit her hard and rubbed her into the fence.
Hmm.
Fortunately, did not injure her. But it was really interesting because that cow showed no aggression to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't like her.
Hmm.
And so I've thought about this and I've seen this happen over and over the years. And if you talk to your neighbors or you talk to people who have worked livestock, you've seen instances where there are people around cattle and all of a sudden someone shows up to help, a neighbor or whatever. The vehicle pulls up, they get out of their truck, and they don't even get in the corral necessarily. And the cattle, their heads are up and they're
Right.
agitated.
The dynamics change with every
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, and to me, and I know my mom was very insecure about cows, and I almost bet you, that cow sensed mom's insecurity and figured, well, what are you worried about? Maybe you're a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the way you carry yourself, you have to be calm and relaxed. That doesn't mean you have to think about a way out, but you need to be calm and confident. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be assured around cattle. Now, the other thing you need to do is you need to be able to learn to read cattle because there's no point walking blindly into a situation with a cow-calf pair where this cow has her head up, her back is arched, her tail is twitching. She's got all the classic ears are forward, she's focused on you. Um, she's got all the typical signs of a cow that's insecure about you approaching.
Right.
And so I would really encourage you to figure out another way to deal with that kind of cow. Um, the other thing that I was going to mention was that a lot of these cows, and the most dangerous cow probably, because some of those cows, and the vast majority of them are overt in terms of their insecurity or concern about you coming close to them.
Yeah, they make it known.
Right? Yeah, they tell you. The scary ones are the cows that don't.
Mm-hmm.
We had an
Mm-hmm.
old red Angus cow, 90D.
You remember her number. We
Oh,
know
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
one
you're
then.
not forgetting this old cow. She was a big old barrel of a cow and solid red cow. My daughter and I are out in the pasture and we're tagging calves horseback. And this old cow, I knew she was trouble but the way she would carry on as if she didn't have a care in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Her calf would be there. She knew where it was. She might be really close to it. She might not be. She'd see you coming. You could see her see you. Head would be down grazing. She'd just be relaxed. And the instant you touch that calf, she was coming for you.
Oh
And
no.
she was serious. This
Mm-hmm.
was not a bluff. She was coming for you. And so, those are the unpredictable ones, right? And so
So how do you manage those ones? Right? If you
right,
know you have one or two in the
exactly,
herd, what do you do?
exactly, exactly. So cows like that, typically there's a couple ways to go about it. We spend a fair bit of time horseback. Like we don't pick a fight. I don't pick a fight. If a cow's feeling really insecure about me being around her calf, I'll just leave her alone. If I'm out there horseback, because a horse isn't going to give you much cover if
No.
you're out there alone, right? I mean, you can snare that calf and pull him up, and maybe you can reel him in with the rope if you got him by a front leg, and then you can reach down and tag him without getting off your horse, right? Which I've done that before. But by and large, if a cow's really bothered, I'll just leave her alone. For me, I'm not going to forget who she is. She's not going to forget who her calf is. And
Mm-hmm.
in a day or two or three, when I'm going through these, there'll be a time where either she's calmed down and she's prepared to let me come to it, or there's going to be a time where that calf is laid off by itself and she's gone for water or she's gone for salt or something like that. And you may have an opportunity to get off and tag that calf. And or if we're out there with a pickup, then I'll snare the little bugger, and then I might climb into the back of the truck and reel him into the back of the truck. But by and large anymore, I just don't get in a big bother about getting that calf tagged immediately.
Right. And I
It's
guess that
not
goes
the
back that
it's
goes back
not
to
the
that
end of the
laid back
world.
confident feel, right? Because if you know you don't have to get this calf tagged right now while you're out there, you're not going to be pushing quite so hard.
Yeah, you're not going to be pushing so hard. You're not going to take the risks. You're not going to feel like, oh, the end of the world's coming if I don't get that calf tagged today. No, that's just not the way it is, right? Uh, like, and there are no calves that I haven't got tagged within like 10 days. You just get
Hmm.
them tagged. And so there's other ways to go about it. Now, so um, what I find is that in the process of tagging calves, a lot of people, and this is where I tread lightly into this territory because I certainly do not want to be the one that's going to get someone hurt. But what
Hmm.
I find is that, and I don't mind a cow being protective.
Right.
Like I'm not going to hold it against her, right? We
Hmm.
have predators.
Yeah.
I
She'll
want a
probably attack a
protective,
coyote then too.
yes, I want a protective mama. I'd way prefer a protective mama than one that pops it out and then walks off,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
And but I tread lightly into this next topic, but this is something that I used to do. I used to be tagging the calf, and a lot of times I'll have someone with me, but I prefer just to be out there by myself because it's less threatening to the cow if she's insecure at all. But at least there's someone else there that can watch, and you might have a pickup truck or someone else with another horse nearby or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
but the biggest thing is that people take offense to the cow coming to sniff its baby just to make sure the baby's okay.
Right.
And just by virtue of the fact that the cow comes close, a lot of people start getting aggressive with the cow. Well, if the cow's concerned about you being a threat to her baby and then you start beating on her when she gets close, what have you
You
just
are a
confirmed?
threat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You want to get her more hot and bothered, start wailing on her with the tagging pliers, right?
Right.
Because you're concerned about her.
Hmm.
99.99% of cows, when I tag their calves, they come and sniff their baby. Their head is down, they're talking to it. I let them sniff the baby. I'm in a
Hmm.
position on my feet. I do not get down on the ground. I always tag the calf when I'm up on my feet. I got the calf uh, trapped like in a little head gate between my knees, and I never get down on the ground off my feet.
Hmm. That's a good note there, because a lot of people do.
I see it all the time. People
Hmm.
knelt right down on the ground. They're in no position at all for an exit.
Right.
I never do that. I will
Hmm.
never do that. Um, yeah, and so those are some of my thoughts is stay calm, stay cool, stay collected. Don't get absolutely aggressive with the cow unless she starts to get aggressive with you, and you just have to give yourself some time and space to get away,
Hmm.
right?
So what does it look like? Because you said you don't calve the day they're born necessarily, if the
No,
cow's
correct.
aggressive. So what does it look like when they're bigger and stronger and a little bit harder to catch? Because they start to move fast pretty quickly.
Right. This is a really good, they start to move very fast. May and June, especially June calves on those warm days, and we breed
They run.
mostly Angus, right? And we're not breeding for much growth. And so they're like little jackrabbits. I mean, those little buggers can be running at full tilt, like even when they're only 8 hours old or even less.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
that's my number one rule is I never chase a cow or calf.
Hmm.
And this is hard for people to comprehend because our instinctive sort of predatory hunter instinct in the back of
Chase.
our yeah, in the back of our brain, they start running and we start chasing.
Hmm.
And that's just impulsive. It's something that people do without thinking. It's an instinctive kind of behavior, but I never do that. I never do that. And and without demonstrating and seeing video of it, it might be hard to sort of conceptualize, but I always put myself in front. I always get everybody stopped, get out wide. And if she wants to run off at high speed, then I'll just let her run off and I'll go way around until she stops on her own, and then I'll come up to her from the front. Um, but what I try and do, either I'll snare them as they walk by or go by when I'm in front because they'll want to come around me, or I'll actually, if I'm on foot and we're up against the fence, a lot of times this will work. If you get them stopped, the cow's looking at you, and then you can turn her and she'll start going one way. And if you step in behind her, go towards her, the calf wants to go towards her. It's amazing how many times those calves will come right up to you because you
Right.
put yourself between your mama and the calf. The cow's going away and you're in position for the calf to come to you. And otherwise, if the cow is really dead set on running, then I'm not going to chase her, and we'll just wait till she's calmed down a bit and she doesn't feel like I'm such a threat.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it really does. So, okay, and then moving kind of on a little bit later, when you're looking to move paddocks or you have to bring
exactly,
animals into the corrals, or what does
exactly.
that look like with cow-calf?
Okay, so let's back up just a little bit because the one thing that I've learned uh, that is really hard for people to get out of the habit. So I'm sure you've been in this situation where you need to move a single pair out the gate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they're like a day or two old, 2 days old. And you get up to the cow and the calf, or maybe you get 10 or 15 feet away from the cow and the calf. The cow gets up and starts going, and
hmm
then the calf just sits there.
Right.
And what's your instinct?
To try and push the calf.
That's right. You see, you're a good cowgirl. And and that's what everyone's instinct is.
hmm
So let's think about the calf's instinct. When you see a calf starting to learn to nurse, and when you see a calf around its mom when it's really, really young, like the first day, the first 12 to 14 hours, even a bit later, what the calf does is in the process of finding that teat, it'll bump into its mom.
hmm
And instead of going away from pressure, it leans into it.
It's true.
Yeah, it keeps leaning into it.
Yeah.
Lean into the shoulder, oh, no teat there. And then it'll lean into the belly, poke around, no teat there. And then it'll keep leaning in. And when it feels, it pushes in. So what has been your experience when you go to push that calf up to its mom?
It'll come towards and then circle around you.
And the more you push it, what does it do? It pushes back into you,
Right.
right? Haven't you
Yeah.
had them? Like you get behind it and you push on the butt.
And turns
And
around
when
and circles, comes back.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it pushes back into you because when you push it to go, it sort of pushes back in and then it'll come around and it'll want to push into the push. It doesn't know a push means go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we move and calve at the same time. So we're moving paddocks and we're calving simultaneously. So we're moving young pairs quite regularly.
Right.
And the biggest thing that I've learned is to learn to have the patience to let the cow take the calf. Boy, that
Again, this no
sounds
hurry thing.
boy, that sounds simple, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Doesn't that sound simple? But do you know how absolutely almost impossible that is for people to do? To
Right.
just pressure that cow enough that she'll get up and she'll think about moving. And you're not going to pressure her too much so she doesn't bugger off without her calf, because that's what
hmm
most of us do because we're in a hurry and you
Yep.
want to push. Calf has no clue. Cow starts to bugger off. And then we're left having to push into the calf instead of letting the calf take the cow.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of the things that has helped me and made the quality of my life moving day-old pairs, 2-day-old pairs, week-old pairs, whatever, is to understand that there's a little bit of time, but it makes your life so much easier to let the cow get up, let her acknowledge her calf, not pressure her too much, and let her take the calf. Because
Right.
the calf wants to follow the cow, but a lot of times we won't give the calf time
To get up and do
to
it.
get
So
there.
what happens, because with most herds, you go open a gate, they get super excited to go through, forget
Oh
that their
yeah.
calf is there. So what does
Oh
that
yeah.
look like?
Oh yeah. So, there's all sorts of what would I say, circumstances and different scenarios. Uh, whether you're going out onto a road, whether you're just moving through a gate for an adjacent pasture, and the importance of, because to me, what you've referred to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've referred to the idea that we're going to move the whole bunch and we want everybody to go, and they're all young cows and calves, and it's in the spring possibly, and maybe this is the first move out of your calving pasture onto green grass, and you open the gate, and you maybe have to go a little ways. If it was adjacent and you could just let the cows come back through that gate, then it's not a big deal,
Right. So
right?
you just leave the gate
And
open in that case.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. It's not a big deal. But if you're actually going somewhere, then it becomes a big deal, because if you're in a situation where you don't want cows running back for calves, you don't want calves running back to find their mamas, then the trick to that whole scenario is to get them paired and
Hmm.
keep them paired. And so that's a big mistake that we made moving cow calf pairs, is that right at the very beginning, we wouldn't take the time to make sure everyone was paired. And then we wouldn't go out the gate in a manner that actually helped them stay paired. And we weren't prepared to stop at any point on the move to let them get paired up when we assessed that we're starting to get quite a few calves at the back. We're starting to get calves
Right.
bawling. We're starting to get cows that are maybe start to bawl. The noise starts to come, because you see, sound is the biggest indicator of whether or not you have paired. Because somebody might be asking themselves, well, how do I know they're all paired? Well, you know they're all paired before you start moving the whole herd, just based on the amount of bawling that's going on. Because if this is all quiet, then they're all paired and you can start moving. And so the
Right.
thing is that it's a progressive process of not just immediately going into the pasture and saying, okay, now everybody move. No, it's a process of, okay, depending on what time you show up in the morning or the day, depending on whether the calves are bedded down and the cows are already out grazing, or whether you've showed up, crack of dawn and the sun's just coming up and the cows are just getting off their bed and the calves are just getting up and nursing, which is a better time to show up, because you're not going to have to work as hard to get everybody paired, because everybody's paired with the first nursing, right?
Hmm.
And and so depending on when you show up, if it is later in the morning, mid-morning, and the cows have gone out grazing after the calves have nursed, then your job is to alert everybody that the task here at hand is to go find your baby, go get it up, nurse, get paired up, and we'll get everybody together, and then we're going to start going. And and so that process of moving cow calf pairs is predicated on the whole notion that the success of preventing runbacks, preventing cows coming back looking for calves, calves coming back looking for cows, is is the job of keeping them paired, keeping them together, and don't and there are scenarios where you don't have the luxury of stopping. If you're going out onto a public roadway where there's traffic,
You have
right?
to move. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to move. So there's two things, and we'll continue with this. So that, let's say we get to where we're going, we don't have any run backs yet. So the one thing I really don't want people to do, because this is the typical scenario when we were growing up and we were moving cow-calf pairs down the road, especially early in the spring, is that as soon as calves start piling up at the back, is then people get insecure about calves running back. And so what do we start doing at the back?
Waving your hands and running after them.
Yeah, you start increasing the pressure, right? Because you sort of want to hedge your bets, and you want to sort of make sure you want to try and prevent those calves running back when they're starting to get piled up at the back. And the reality is that the more insecure you make those calves with the pressure you put on them, what do they think about? Well, if their
They want
mom's
to run
not
back to
there,
where they were safe last.
that's right. They want to go back to where they were with their mamas last. And it's amazing if you observe the behavior of these calves, because it's interesting if you watch cows and calves move just in a pasture or move totally on their own schedule, under their own volition, how a lot of calves don't mind being trailing behind mom, like quite a ways. They might not even be able to see her, but they know mom went that way and they're prepared to follow that way. A lot more so than if we're behind, pushing on them, agitating them, making noise, getting after them, swinging our ropes, our macaddies, whatever it is that we're doing, right? Because we think we're doing ourselves a favor. And then those calves get insecure and they think about going back to where they were with mom last. And then those calves are shooting back between us and they're running back. And what are you going to do? I mean, at any rate. So that can all really unravel very quickly to where the point you have the whole herd running back too, right? So, that's one thing I would really encourage people not to do is let those calves go. If you have the luxury of stopping, if you see a bunch of calves starting to pile up at the back and you have the luxury of stopping that front end, stop the whole thing.
Right.
Let them pair up for 15, 20 minutes. Then go ahead. Now, when you get to where you're going, don't make the mistake like we always did. You're going into a new pasture, just like you said, it's the spring. There's all this fresh green grass. Maybe these cows came out of a pasture where it was getting pretty minimal. All of a sudden, they're all excited. You get into that pasture. What do the cows do? Yep,
Run
they
to
bugger
feed.
off to they bugger off to go graze green grass. How many minutes is it before you got calves coming back looking for the mama?
Like none.
Yeah, exactly. 4 or 5 minutes. What's a 4-wire gate, 5-wire gate to a 2-week or a 3-week or a 4-week old calf? So you did all this job of getting them where you wanted them. And then all of a sudden you're going to let mom bugger off. And then the calves, well, okay, we're out of here. We're leaving. We're going back to find mom. And you got runbacks, right? And so the final step when we're moving cow-calf pairs anywhere, if we're moving them any distance, is to get the herd through the gate, check that movement, and just stall it. You don't want to jam it back towards the gate hard. You want to give them a bit of room and just stall it. And you're just going to hold that herd there and let them, once all the calves are in, and you're going to let everybody pair up. And, typically it might take 20, 25 minutes once the cows figure out that you're not letting them go. And then they're going to start looking for their calves. And then everybody's going to get together and it's going to be mayhem. You're going to have 200, 300, 400, whatever it is, cows and calves all bawling for each other, right? And you're going to check that movement. You're going to hold it up. And then slowly and surely, they'll get paired up. They'll start nursing. And then cows will start laying down. Calves will start laying down. And it'll go from absolute cacophony to totally quiet. Everybody's settled. Everybody's paired, and now you can leave and you don't have to worry about runbacks. And the cows learn this routine.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was one of the last things that I really took the time to learn to do. And Bud talked about it and recommended it, and we're always in such a hurry, right? I got to get back and do this and do that, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, that's one of the most powerful things that we have really, that I was very slow to adopt because I just thought it would take too long. But it's amazing how you can train your cows to that routine. And I use dogs, of course, and my dogs were trained to that routine. My old dogs are virtually gone now, but it was amazing because they would know exactly. I'd have those cows pretty well all through, and then I'd just tell those dogs to get out, and they knew
Yeah.
exactly that all their job was to go out there and just hold cattle.
Just hold them. I was going to ask you what your method of holding was at that point, or would you ever recommend someone just bring portable fence panels if they have that
That's a good
possibility?
idea. Yeah. Yeah. If your cows are trained to electric fence, you can have a little paddock set up
Mm-hmm.
beforehand to hold
Mm-hmm.
them in. That's definitely a good idea. Panels are a good idea. And any of that works. If your cattle are taught to drive and taught to take pressure, then you can just get the gate closed. We usually leave one guy at the back, horseback, just in case some calves decide to try and pop through
Get
the
through.
gate. Yeah. And then I usually be out in the front with the dogs, or I'll have, you know, another rider maybe with me, and we'll just get a loose pack on those cows so they're not real tight. Because if they're too tight, it's going to be harder for those cows and calves to find each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then if these cows are taught to take pressure, you got a cow that decides to start going out. Well, all you do is bump into her just enough to turn her around. You're not going to jam her back into the corner. You're just going to get her to turn around and face that way. And you're just going to keep bumping when they start to try and leave. And then pretty soon they get the idea that they're not going anywhere, and they'll go look for their babies. And so
Right.
that'll make your life so much easier if you take the time to do that.
Those are some great tips. Let's say three of the things that have really taken kind of a mind shift from the time you started working cattle to what you know and do now?
Whew. Um, so, it sounds simple and it's just one word. Um, but it's all encapsulated. One of the biggest things, and this is, I think, why my dad would get so mad, and why a lot of people handling cattle get so mad, is that they feel pressured for time. But underneath all that, underneath this pressured for time, is this insecurity.
Mm,
Because what do most people that handle cattle have in the back of their mind when they're doing a job? A lot of people have in the back of their mind the last big wreck,
that's true.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. It was in the front of my mind when I was young because we had no shortage of them, right? So you have this. So the whole premise of your demeanor to
Mm,
begin with is this insecurity. Well,
hmm
what's the insecurity? Oh, the wrong cow is going to go out the gate. Oh, the cows are going to run back. Oh, they're not going to do this. Oh, they're not going to go into the corral. Oh, I can't back off and give them any time or space because they're all going to run away. There's all these scenarios of the end of the world's coming. And if these cows run away once, then we're never getting them back, right?
Right. Yeah.
And, and and the only significance of that really is that it erodes your confidence and your calmness as a leader.
hmm hmm Yeah, that
You're
makes
the
sense.
one,
That's a really good one.
yeah. You see, because like the way I think about it, Amber, is that all of this is like all of this when we're working cattle is our idea, right? It's our idea.
Yeah.
We have to move here, there, blah, 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 blah. It's our idea. We're the instigators, right?
Yep.
We
Yep.
are the leaders.
hmm
Okay, a good leader is calm and confident. They're not insecure.
That's
They
true.
don't anticipate the end of the world is coming. For my dad, the end of the world came if the cow got out that my mom was supposed to hold, right?
I've been yelled
Right?
at that for that too, so I get
Yes,
you. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. I got yelled at as a kid all the time. And and the message was the end of the world has come.
Mm-hmm,
My
mm-hmm.
dad just had a tantrum because well, you know, the end of the world hasn't come yet. We don't live adjacent to the Grand Canyon. They didn't all pile over the canyon and all die,
Right, we still
right?
have
I'm pretty
their,
sure she's over there, and I'm pretty sure I can get her back if I need her back, right?
yeah,
And in the end, what good did the temper tantrum do anyway?
ruined everybody else's day,
Yeah,
typically. Yeah.
yeah. And did it make the cattle any easier to handle?
No.
No, no,
Hmm.
no. You see, so now if you combine that calm, confident demeanor, like nothing terrible can happen today. We're just going to do this job and we're going to do what's necessary to get the job done. And, if it takes time, it takes time. It's going to take the time it takes. And we're just going to be calm and patient and we're going to pay attention to what the cows are telling us. And if we need to back up, then we're going to back up. So
Hmm.
this is I don't know if this is one or two in in
In
the
the three
response
things?
to your question, but this is one of the primary ones. And
Hmm.
Bud said, like he said, your probability of teaching people to give ground and back up is almost none.
Hmm.
When cattle pressure back, when we feel cattle pressure back into us, is our instinct to give ground and gain position?
No.
Never,
We're taught go
never.
forward, don't let them win.
Absolutely. That's right. That's what we were always taught.
Hmm.
Don't give ground, right? You're the boss. Hold your ground. Don't let her by. And in doing so, we create more insecurity in the cattle and we forsake our position.
Right.
We don't take the pressure off. We don't let them calm down. And the reality is that we're way more likely to have things fall apart because we refuse to back up. We
Hmm.
refuse to give ground. I always remember Bud had a video of working some bull reindeer in the Arctic, and he had a border collie. There were two border collies bringing his reindeer up into this corral, and they'd get it up close, and then that bull would, because this is the reality, whether it's you or the dogs, the whatever it is, if those cows decide to run by you, can you stop them?
No. If
No,
they're intent on running by you, they're running by you,
they're running by you, over you, through you. They don't
kicking
care.
you while they're on their way.
Exactly. I mean, you can't stop them. And at any rate, these dogs knew that. And as soon as that
Hmm.
bull turned around and started pushing into him, the dogs had asked whether, okay, can my position hold you? And when that bull told them no, it couldn't, they would just start giving ground. And they went back far enough to where they got the critter stopped. They kept
Wow.
asking the critter, where do we stop? Oh, I can get you stopped here. And then they asked him to turn and they would go again. And then
Hmm.
they'd give ground again. And it took 3 or 4 times. But that bull finally went up into the corral. And this is the way it is that we need to learn to work our position. A good
Hmm.
defenseman, what does he learn to do? He learns to skate backwards.
Right.
In basketball, he learns to run backwards,
Hmm.
right? You have to give ground to hold your position. That means you have to give ground. You have to be prepared to read the circumstance and give ground if they're calling for it. And boy, that's a tough one to learn.
It
Oh,
is, it goes
man,
against instincts. I think even when you're dealing with humans, it goes against instincts, right? It's like,
it
no, you're
does.
pushing, I'm pushing back.
Exactly. No,
Mhm.
that's right. That's a tough one. Holy moly.
Okay, so
Um,
what's your third there?
right. Exactly. So what's my third? Oh, we got a long list, but my third and it's hard to say, hard to rank these as the most important, because they all combine to form an approach to stock that becomes a lot more effective. But it would tie in with the other two, and and it's the instinct of wanting to chase cattle that run away from you.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that if the cattle run off, your job is to chase after them.
Right.
See, that's not herding.
Mm-hmm.
Herding is not chasing.
Mm-hmm.
If cattle run off from me, like you see, like our cattle are trained and have been for decades now. So I don't have these scenarios relative to the situations that producers face, especially who bring in stalker cattle in the spring and you unload like 200 or 300 yearlings that just came out of a backgrounding lot into a pasture, right? And this is the first move, and you're going out there either with four wheelers or whatever it is, right? And these cattle have not been trained or worked with they don't understand what pressure is. They don't yield to pressure. They haven't been taught to drive, essentially, right? And and human instinct is, and this is the reason I know this intimately, is because I chased cattle for, you know, half my, well, probably for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I chased cattle. You go to a community pasture and cattle run off. These cattle you just dumped into this pasture, these stalker cattle, you go to move them and they run off. How long does it take before they're running the wrong way? The
Not
wrong way.
long.
Yeah, no, it doesn't take any time at all. And then what's our job? Well, our job is to chase after them and hook around and get in front of them and get them going the right way. Well, in the process of doing that, we've just added a bunch more speed and nervous energy.
A lot of
And
stress.
yeah, and if you do get them turned,
Mm-hmm.
are they just, let's say you get them stopped and turned, do they just like all calm down and then just start walking?
They are no
No,
longer thinking straight.
no, they're running whatever way they can to get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
we think that we're going to control that kind of movement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing about this instinct to chase is that, uh, it's funny when you think about it. Archaeologists claim that, people have been herding cattle for somewhere between, I think it's 6,000 years or something like that, or 6,500 years, or, you know,
A long
quite a
time.
while, quite a while. But before that, what were they doing? Before they domesticated animals, what were they doing? Well,
Herding
they were hunting them.
or hunting. Yeah, that's true
Yeah,
too.
yeah, they were hunting them. How long were we hunters? Well,
Long
hundreds of
time.
thousands of years, maybe
Mm-hmm.
500,000 years. Who knows? I don't know. But we were doing that for a long, bloody time.
Right.
That seems to me to be ingrained into our instinctive impulses around stock, because even people that aren't raised around stock or have no experience around stock, when you see cattle run off from them and they've been tasked with the job to go put these cattle somewhere and the cattle run, well, then
They
they want to
chase.
go chase them.
Yeah.
They
That's
want to
interesting
chase
because I've
after
always
them.
thought part of it would be culturally, right? We have rodeos, and rodeo sports are just a prime example of how you get the job done fast. It's, you're not worried about low stress animal handling. You're worried about getting the job done. Um,
Exactly.
so I think, yeah, but it is interesting to think like if you bring someone new in that's never been around cattle, they will do the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, because Bud, I remember Bud was at our ranch in the early 90s for 3 days, and I had that very good fortune of being able to spend those 3 days with them, and we worked cattle every day. And I remember at the end of one day there, we were just leaning up against the box on the pickup truck, and it came to my mind. I asked him, "Bud, who would you rather try and share these ideas and your techniques with? Someone who'd spent their entire life working stock, or someone who'd never worked stock in their life?" And, instinctively in my mind, I thought, well, he'd probably rather work with a blank slate, right? Someone who'd never worked stock. And
That's
his
what I would think.
his answer sort of surprised me, because he said, "Doesn't matter." And I thought to myself, I thought about that, like really, I thought about that for, I bet, 5 or 6 years. And it was not until after I started doing the livestock handling seminars and clinics that it slowly started to dawn on me. The reason it doesn't matter is because all humans are wired the same.
Huh. Yeah, I could see it.
Right? The old dog's wired the same as the person that's never worked cattle in their life. And if
That's
this
true.
person that's never worked cattle in their life is tasked with, okay, you go gather up these 300 cow calf pairs in the fall, and your whole livelihood depends on you getting them all in the corral, getting the cows and calves separated, and getting them on the truck to that sale. What will they resort to when push comes to shove if they have trouble? They'll resort to the same damn thing everyone else resorts to.
It's so true.
It is. It is.
hmm
And so the in answer to your question, we need to be aware enough, self-aware enough, that we can remain calm,
hmm
that we can release our insecurities enough to back up and give ground when we start to hit resistance up at the corrals, because our human instinct is, the closer we get to where we want our cattle to be,
Harder we
without
have to
even
push.
thinking about it, the more we push. Yes.
hmm
And so inadvertently, we train our cattle that the closer they get to where we want them to be, the more uncomfortable their life is going to become. And so inadvertently, we train them not to want to do what we want them to do. And and at the clinics the seminars that we do in the livestock handling clinics, we get to demonstrate that, and people get to feel what that feels like. But without the self-awareness to understand these things and to be able to control your impulses that are deeply ingrained in you, you're not going to be able to change the way you approach handling stock.
Right. Those are some amazing tips, and I think we've run way over time, but this has been so good. But just before I let you go, how can people get a hold of you if they're looking to learn some more cattle handling skills? What does that look like?
I'm not very up on all this stuff in terms of websites and stuff like that, but probably the best way for people to track me down is through our website, tkranch.com.
hmm
It will come up as our meat website, but there's opportunities there to email questions and inquiries. And if they have any questions and inquiries that they want pointed at me or to come to my direction, then that's probably the best way to do it. Yeah, at tkranch.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure, as always. And I look forward to the next time we talk, Dylan.
Oh, yeah. No, let's talk again, Amber. That's great. I appreciate your interest, and always a pleasure. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.